What's up, everybody? Michael Walsh here. So today I want to discuss Paddy Pimblett versus Conor McGregor, and I want to ask why we're not getting that fight. Because to me, I feel like that's a fight that probably should have been made. They're both fighting on the same card in a couple of weeks. They're not fighting each other. And I see why they might not be, and I even see why that might look like the right move in hindsight now that Justin has beat Ilya, and I'll get into all that. But nevertheless, I ultimately feel like this is a little bit of a fumble. These guys should be fighting each other and just have Max Holloway fight BSD or something. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this was a blown opportunity. So why am I saying this? In terms of personalities and in terms of just superstars fighting, in terms of a fight in the main event that everyone is going to be talking about, I don't know that you could do much bigger than Paddy Pimblett versus Conor McGregor. The press conferences, the trash talk, you got the Liverpool versus Ireland angle. Like, this would be massive. This would be an absolutely massive fight. And for Paddy, as a guy who went on a good win streak and then got smashed by Justin, and as a guy who's still a little iffy as a young contender, and as Conor as someone who's achieved quite a bit more, but had a fall from grace and has now sat out a long time, it's not necessarily like a mismatch on any level. And sure, it might not be the best in terms of Paddy, should he get a win, deserving a title shot or anything, whereas he might actually pull that off if he can beat BSD, because he's got the history with Justin and because he's such a big name. He still won't deserve it, but he'll at least deserve a top contender fight at that point. So I get for Paddy, it's not the best thing rankings-wise, but conversely, for Paddy as a star, for Paddy as a name, for Paddy as a guy who, let's be real, still probably won't be a champion. As much as I made a video taking back the bad things I said about him in the wake of his defeat against Justin Gaethje, where afterwards I was saying, I can't even pick this guy to beat anyone in the top 15. If you're getting clobbered by old man Justin like that, this is terrible. As much as I said that, and as much as I walk that back, I still don't have Paddy as the favorite, as the dark horse to become champion at 155. So I'm not even sure he's going to beat BSD. I'm going to do a big tape study on that. I will be doing a technical deep dive for both the Paddy BSD fight and for the Conor Holloway fight, so stay tuned for those. But yeah, I don't have Paddy as a champion in the near future. And what could he do that would be bigger for his reputation, for his star value, for his his public presence than beating Conor McGregor? Again, I feel like this was just a blown opportunity. I get that Conor and Max have history. I get where Conor versus Max is still an interesting fight. I'm interested in it. I feel like, though, most people are picking Max to win. They're saying, look, Max is the more improved of the two. Max is a guy who beat Dustin Poirier in the trilogy fight. He's a guy who almost beat him in their rematch. Conor lost to Poirier twice in their trilogy bouts. Conor's been out for so long, he doesn't seem up on the game anymore. He's got all the personal stuff and the drugs and this, that, and the other thing, and coming back from the injury, yada, yada, yada. Max is the favorite. I feel like against someone like Paddy, who's still trying to prove himself, there would be more intrigue as far as who's actually going to win, because technique for technique, Conor is a better martial artist. And I'd be interested in it because Conor has gas tank issues, not unlike Ilya, but Conor has very underrated jiu-jitsu. I'm not convinced that Paddy, should he get it to the ground or should he shoot a takedown or something, is going to be successful. And Paddy's going to be there to be tagged, but he's also got a great chin and he's mentally tough. So to me, this is a more compelling fight than this sort of question of ooh, does Conor still sneakily have the answer to Max because he beat him 12 years ago when Max was 20 or however old he was. Does he still have the secret juice? And is this the year of the upset? And is Max falling off because he's finally getting old? Those are the sorts of questions people are asking going into the main event here in order to give some sense of competitiveness between these two guys. And again, I'm going to do a tape study. I'm not making a pick right now, but at a glance, it's a rough fight for Conor, right? At a glance, it makes sense that Conor should be a massive underdog. Whereas I feel like a fight with Paddy, that's more intriguing. That's hypothetically more competitive. It's a little bit more freak showy, and I kind of like that. Now, again, since Paddy's loss to Justin has aged so well, maybe some of that wouldn't be as true right here and now. But nevertheless, I think that it's a better fight to make on that level too. And it's certainly, by a mile, the bigger fight to make just in terms of names and in terms of what they'll be able to do with the marketing, the promotion. Paddy's active on social media, and I know Max is too to some degree, but not, Paddy would really do a lot with it. Conor would do a lot with it. And again, what would be wrong with that as the main event? And Max Holloway versus Benoit Saint Denis in the co-main event. That's a very worthy, top 10 fight at lightweight. That'd be an interesting fight for Max against a big guy who can grapple. See if he can, let's see if BSD can replicate what Charles did, and let's see if Max can defend it, and let's see how Max does on the feet. BSD gets his second shot at one of these older dudes at lightweight because he failed when he came up against Dustin Poirier. That's a compelling narrative in its own right. And I feel as much as I'm now more interested in Paddy versus BSD than I was prior to Justin beating Ilya. Whereas in the past, I did specifically write off Paddy's chances of beating someone like BSD. As much as I'm more interested in that now, collectively, I'm more interested in Paddy versus Conor and Max versus BSD than I am in Max versus Conor and Paddy versus BSD. So overall, I think this was a fumble. I get where they could be potentially looking at it as if we do that, then we automatically lose one star because one of them's got to lose. And sure, I get that. And sure, there's a possibility that both of them win. So there's a possibility Paddy beats BSD, and there's a possibility Conor beats Max. And now everything's great for the UFC. They've got nothing but choices. Do they throw Conor in with Justin? Do they throw Paddy in for the rematch? Do they then have Paddy fight Conor and have the winner fight for the title? I get where in that situation, they've got nothing but options. Do they have Conor go up and fight Islam? Anything can happen. But there's also the chance they both fucking lose, right? And that might be the most likely outcome, frankly. I wouldn't be shocked if, I know for a fact Conor's going to be the underdog. I won't be shocked if Paddy's the underdog. And I won't be shocked if after doing all my tape study, I pick both of them to lose. And that might not count for much because my technical deep dives currently have a losing record of 3-4. But all this to say, it's certainly not a given. They're both going to fucking win. So, are you really saving your ass that much by not having them fight each other? And if, depending on how it plays out, this just you might miss the opportunity, right? If Paddy loses and Conor wins, he's not going to fight Paddy. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. We had this opportunity. They're literally fighting on the same fucking night. And again, I feel Paddy looking for the comeback, Conor looking for the comeback, quite literally, not just coming back from a loss, but coming back from retirement. This makes sense to me. And I would have been hyped. As much as it's sort of a silly fight, and as much as people would bemoan it being a main event, the same applies to Max versus Conor. That's not a title fight. That's a fight that could be a blowout. That's not typical of a numbered event main event, right? So, it's just purely the Conor. It's just the Conor name brand that's bringing that, and that's justifying that. And I'm okay with that. I think, I'm just okay with them having non-title fights be main events. I don't think that should be the norm or anything, but that used to be common. And yeah, sometimes it was a little silly, I've mentioned in the past, but Rampage Jackson headlined an event against Matt Hamill. So things like that did happen. But also, sometimes it was great. Dan Henderson headlined an event against Shogun Rua in their first fight. That was not for a title. That was a top contenders fight. And by virtue of it being the main event, it was 5 rounds, and now it's one of the best fights ever. It's a little overrated. There's a little bit of nostalgia coloring how great that fight is. That's not even the best Shogun Rua fight. The best Shogun Rua fight is his first fight with Nogueira. But it's a great fight. And yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Just like I was okay with Holloway Poirier 3 being a main event. And yeah, they had to slap on some horseshit BMF title to feel like they could justify that. But they're not doing that here because Conor is such a big name. And so, yeah, Conor versus Paddy being twice as big of a fight, maybe not twice because Conor is still the A side, but being just a colossal fight, having a very real shot of being a bigger event than, I was going to say a bigger event than the White House card, but I don't think that's true. I think if it weren't at the White House, it would have been. If you took that same lineup of fights, if you had Alex Pereira and Ilia Topuria in the co-main and main, I think Conor would dwarf that still. And Conor versus Paddy would like way dwarf that. But the fact that it was at the White House and everything, I've heard that it got some pretty insane viewership. I think like 17 million viewers or something like that. So maybe the White House boost actually just would have eclipsed even Conor versus Paddy. But that aside, this would overwhelmingly be the biggest event of the year by a mile. Like this would do big numbers, Paddy versus Conor. So again, I don't get it. And I'm someone, if you watch my channel, I'm someone who cares about meritocracy, and I'm someone who cares about the GOAT conversation and this, that, and the other thing. And I want Evloev to get his fucking title shot, and I want Arman to get his fucking title shot, and yada yada. But I'm not above being interested in superstars fighting each other, okay? And again, this doesn't feel like a mismatch to me. It's a little circusy because of the X factors, but I'm fine with it. This would be cool. And again, there's a real chance we'll just never get it. We might, like if both guys win, anything can happen, right? They could fight each other. Paddy could beat Justin in a rematch. Maybe, I'm not betting on that to happen, but that could happen, and then Conor fights him. Like, who knows? Like, things could happen. It's not forever off the table, but there's a decent chance, that like Conor just gets his ass kicked and never fights again. Or Paddy loses and Conor wins, and then Paddy's not going to fight him. There's just ways this could go that have a real shot, that might be more likely than not, and we just never get it. And we could have had it right now. It makes me think of, here's a bit of a throwback, but in Strikeforce, everyone wanted to see Fedor fight Alistair Overeem. Roided up Ubereem, coming off his success in K1, coming off of defending his belt against Brett Rogers, who was a big deal at the time, and just manhandling him and finishing him in a round. Fedor was coming off of his loss against Verdum, and a lot of people still thought Fedor had it. A lot of people still thought Fedor, they thought that was like a fluke, that it was like a lucky submission, because Fedor was kind of slapping Verdum around a little bit, and then he dove into his guard and got triangled. It was getting a little greedy. He like slipped out of one and then went right back in. He thought he could do what he did against Nogueira, and it just didn't work. So people were still high on Fedor at the time, and they had this heavyweight tournament in Strikeforce, and they had great fighters. They had Fedor, they had Overeem, they had Bigfoot Silva, they had Josh Burnett, they had Karatanov, they had Alistair Overeem, and I'm forgetting who the other two were. I know that Daniel Cormier became an alternate and like ended up winning the tournament, but it was a great fucking tournament, and with a lot of great fighters. Oh, Fabricio Verdum was in it, so there's an eighth guy I'm forgetting. But in any case, instead of having Fedor and Overeem just fight each other in the opening round and guarantee we get that fight, they got cute with it, and they had Overeem fight Verdum, and they had Fedor fight Bigfoot. Overeem beat Verdum, but by a kind of ugly decision that actually kind of hurt Overeem's stock, and Fedor just lost to Bigfoot, so we didn't get the fight. And we could have just had it. They could have just made that the opening round and just sealed the deal and ensured that we would have gotten it. But now we never have. And I'm sure Fedor would have gotten killed, so in hindsight, I'm not like too upset we didn't get it, but like at the time, that was a big deal. And it feels just like that now. It feels like we could have easily had Conor versus Paddy, but we're not fucking getting it. So those are my thoughts on that. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you prefer it, how it is, if you think I'm exaggerating and they could easily make this fight in the future in more situations than not. Let me know if you just don't give a shit about Paddy fighting Conor and you're sick of the kind of superstar angle and you're sick of fights being made just because both guys are popular. And you just hate the idea that I'm like acting like it's a loss that we're not getting it. Let me know. From any angle, any opinion you got, let me know in the comment section. Like and subscribe. If you haven't, check out my second YouTube channel. It is called Michael Walsh Nerd Stuff. On that channel, I talk about nerd stuff. I talk about anime, I talk about comic books, talk about sci-fi, video games, novels, film, television. I had a couple of videos come out in the last few days I'm very happy with. The first one, it talked about how the live-action Justice League film, both the Whedon version and the Snyder Cut, how they mishandled Superman. And it talks about how the more recent James Gunn film also, but for very different reasons, mishandled Superman. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, go check it out. If not, no worries. I got you more than covered on this channel with MMA content. And in any case, take care.